Nikki is our pet dachshund. She and I have been working all summer on a series of projects in our backyard. Out of those projects, we've been left with 8 cubic yards of dirt that needed to be moved. Nikki looked at all of that dirt and she wondered what to do with it. It's a lot of dirt. I had an idea and she wasn't too sure about that. But let me tell you how the idea works on how to try to strain the dirt so that you get rid of all the solids, the topsoil, the dirt, the grass, the sticks, the rocks. So what's left is going to be usable soil that you can spread through your yard. So let's see how that works. I started off by going to the local big box home improvement store and bought the various parts. Got some wire, which is a normal fence wire, and I'll show you here what kind that was. It's about a 1/4 inch opening in between the gaps. I also got some cement wire for being able to do the wiring together of the 2 pieces of the fencing that I'm going to be using. Ultimately, I didn't need to use that because the chicken wire type material was actually wrapped up in wire and held together. So I was able to take that wire, cut them into pieces to be able to wire the 2 halves together. And you'll see that a little later in the video how that worked. I began by unrolling the chicken wire. It's quite a process to try to unroll it because it's very, very stiff material. So what I found that worked well was to kind of put it up to the edge of the wheelbarrow and kind of force it into roughly a straighter shape as I'd go up. And then I would continue to roll it down the wider part and then just kind of continue the process, roll it out a little ways, straighten it out a little bit, and keep on going. Took a little while to do that process, but it worked out pretty well on doing that. And ultimately, I had a piece that was fairly straight in the end. I continued to unroll it. The very end has some very sharp pieces, as you can see. I would bend that over to make sure you're not going to poke yourself through. It also helps to strengthen up the edges of the wire so that it's going to hold a little bit straighter as you're going across. So you can kind of see there how I was basically bending it together. So again, trying to straighten it out a little bit, use the edge of the wheelbarrow to work on moving it back and forth because it's a heavier wire. Now at this point, I've got one long piece. If you look there, it's not wide enough the lengthwise, it's not wide enough the widthwise on it. So what I'm going to need to do is take that piece of wire and I'm going to need to cut that mesh in half. So I wrap the one end over the other end and I've got the middle part there and I'm going to try cutting that. I have a small little snip that I'm able to use. Probably would work well if you had tin snips or something like that, but these individual ones you can even use with a lot of pliers. They even actually have a little part closer to the handles that will snip it. But I just snipped the wires one at a time all the way to the end. And once that part is done, then you'd want to finish off the edges again where you're going to bend them toward each other or fold them over, kind of like you'd hem pants or something like that. That's going to help keep that wire from poking into you, which can be very, very sharp. So just roll it over whatever seems to be a comfortable amount, couple of lengths over, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. So what worked for me is that I would roll it over and then I would pinch it, roll it over, go all the way to the one end one side to the next side, and then I would pinch it together. So I had 2 separate pieces, and then I had to pinch the edge of each of them, so it wound up being a total of 4 different edges that I was pinching together. So now is a step on figuring out, they're going to run width-wise on it. How is going to be the best layout? How much of an overlap do you need between the 2 sheets? Ultimately, I tried a bunch of different configurations. What seemed to work best is about 4 separate wires of an overlap on that. So once that was determined, then it's a matter of figuring out how to tie them together. So this is where that wire that was holding together the whole chicken wire, I snipped them off into about 5-6 inches pieces. And then I would weave that through the wire, bring them to a point where it was kind of a U shape on the wire, feed them through, and then twist it around to hold the 2 pieces of chicken wire close together. And I continued to do that about every 3-4 inches. It's just enough to make sure that the 2 pieces are going to be held together and not move, and then that will also give you the full length that you're going to wind up needing to go over the top of the wheelbarrow. Now this particular wheelbarrow that I have is a 2-wheel design. As an old guy, it's a lot easier to use a 2-wheeled wheelbarrow. A single one requires a lot of balancing, and I have tipped many a load over of dirt and sand and other things that has expanded my vocabulary greatly. So I've gone to a 2-wheeled wheelbarrow, which is a lot easier to push. So I continue weaving the pieces in, where basically it's made into a U about 1/4 of an inch wide, and go from the bottom up through the top. Try to catch 2 corners together, if you can see the close-up on that. And that is going to allow you to twist them up on top, so it will hold them together. So finishing up the last of the twisting motions to be able to get the 2 pieces held together. I went back to make sure that all of them were tight. A couple of them that I had done at the beginning were a little loose, so I rewound those to tighten them up a little bit. You just want to make sure that you keep them fairly close together, because as you're doing this process and sifting through the dirt, you're going to get some of the rocks, small branches, pieces of soil, dirt, and basically your topsoil and your grasses are going to get caught in those. And to try to keep from getting hurt, I pushed each of those down to the bottom underneath, so that as I'm taking the covered chicken wire on and off the wheelbarrow, I will not get poked through with those sharp wires. So here you can see the whole thing is finished off, and so now it's a matter of how are we going to hold this thing onto the wheelbarrow. So you can see it fits widthwise, but because it's a fairly heavy metal, you can just start to form and shape it around it. So on the front and on the back, you want to push a little bit harder to make sure that it's going to be securely holding there. And just keep moving around and pressing it down into place. And the better a fit you have, the easier it's going to work. So here's all the dirt, again, that has to be moved, 8 cubic yards of it. So what I want to do here is try it out and show you. The reason I have 8 cubic yards is because of the retaining wall and many of the projects that Nikki and I had done over the summer. So let's try it out, see how it works. So it's all pressed in place, so we lay it over the wheelbarrow, let it kind of fit in place normally where it's going to be. And let's start shoveling. the dirt kind of sits up on top, but you can see some is starting to go through. And as I was kind of trying this, I'm kind of learning a little bit on how the process worked. So there's a lot of dirt that's getting piled up on top. So how is the process going to work on trying to get it sifted through? And here's what I figured out. Take the shovel, move it back and forth, and what you're going to wind up is with the big chunks, the sod and the grasses, the sticks and the rocks will be up on top, but you can see that all the dirt has fallen through. So we just continue filling it up. Do that a couple more times. For my size wheelbarrow, I found that doing the scooping and putting it on the top of the screen and then scraping it back and forth, it took about 3 loads to be able to fill up the wheelbarrow, not quite halfway full, so that it was all very nicely screened dirt that came out. And in the motion with the shovel, you just want to kind of keep rocking it back and forth and use that. Now, done with that part, so it's like, okay, what do you do with all the tailings, all the little debris that's left over? I took just a regular 5-gallon bucket, started to kind of scrape it down a little bit with my hand, push it into the bucket, and that removed all of the rocks. Now, some of the other material that I have in the pile had a lot more of the very topsoil layer, but you can see here how much has come out of that. And so with that topsoil layer, you're going to get a lot more of the grass clumpings in there, and then you'll see more of that debris that you're going to wind up tossing. But if you look at that, nice dirt all ready to go to spread in your yard wherever it is that you want to put it. Enjoy all of this while you watch an old guy doing some work. And even Nikki is appreciative. Please subscribe. You will make her very happy. Please leave any comments that you might have also. And if you have any other tips or ideas on how to strain dirt, please post those too. This is just an old guy doing some builds to see what he can possibly do on that. I hope you got some entertainment value out of this and possibly even some ideas on how to take care of your yard. Thank you for watching.